Adam. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks for asking. Uh, nice setup in the background, by the way.
Thanks. It's half real stuff and half just crap because I'm remodeling the basement a bit here.
Okay. You've actually already preempted one of my questions that I was going to mention later on, which is, I'll just get to it right now, actually. We'll just fire straight in. You met Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I
What was
did.
what was that like?
It was the most surreal and emotionally indescribable 45 seconds of my life.
Oh, that quick.
Because it was at Star Wars Celebration, those photo ops are like assembly line style, and there is no fucking around with, hey man, good. Nope. They just like the handlers yank you. Because I also met Billy Lord, Carrie Fisher's daughter.
Yeah.
Tried to give her a T-shirt, and it was like, it like the old like Apollo hook from the side of the stage yanking you off kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I did make sure just to take it all in as I was going in the line. I kind of stepped to the right and peeked through the curtain, and then as I went out around the corner, I peeked my head back just to make the memory real. Because
Yeah.
things that happen that fast, photo or not, it's just hard to commit it to memory, especially at my age. It's like my brain's like a club at capacity. It's one in, one out. So like I really have to focus to make those memories. So I did it, and it was amazing. I said 4 words to the dude, maybe, but it was pretty awesome.
You said four more words than a lot of people have done. I'm
Yeah,
jealous. I'm very
well worth
jealous.
the money and the wait.
Well, I mean, because I'm from Scotland originally, so Hugh McGregor. Now that Sean Connery's moved on, right? Hugh McGregor's now like the king of Scotland. So, I mean,
As he should be.
yeah. So you go meet somebody like that, and you're like, oh, fucking wow, okay.
Yeah.
So very impressive, very impressive. Anyway,
I
sorry.
was going to ask about your accent. You do have like an interesting blend of accent.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, this is Australia that you're interviewing. I'm interviewing you, and I obviously live in Australia, but I was brought up in the UK. So, but I've been here for about 20 years. So my accent's a mess. That's probably the
Yeah.
best way to describe it. When I go back home, they all go, "You sound Australian," but over here, don't sound Australian at all. They already know it. So,
Yeah, I can hear the little. My wife and I we're super into accents and language, and we love studying Australian, Kiwi, and South African accents and trying to pick out the differences. And we hear somebody talking, we're like, that sounds a little Kiwi, you know. So yours, I can hear the Australian, but then I hear those little like connecting kind of vowels, like the passing tones of it. Like, oh,
yeah,
that's UK. That's not
yeah,
Australia.
yeah. And anything I've figured out anything that's got a U in it, like
Yeah.
or an O, book, bus,
Mm-hmm.
bucket, budgie. Yeah, that's not
Yep.
Australian. None of that's Australian.
No, that's a dead giveaway.
It is what it is. And Kiwi, what I've always been told is fush and chucks and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's Kiwi. That's how
Yeah.
you figure them out. So, anyway, enough of that. So obviously, I'm from High Fi Way. I'm in Australia. We're interviewing you, Adam, in regards to two things: new album out on March 10th, and that you will be here doing the number 6 seems prevalent here because it's the sixth album. And then when you're here, you're doing 6 shows in Australia, 3 with Knotfest, and then 3 side shows. That's all really, really, it's all happening within the space of a couple of weeks. For you, what's going to be what's the part that you're most looking forward to? I'd say all
It's
of it. That's a cop out.
I'm just merely being in the country of Australia, being in that part of the world, I'm super stoked on. But I am bummed that it's so back to back. I mean, we're flying in and out like day after day for quite a long stretch. So I'm pretty bummed out that it is this um, packed of a schedule. But the opportunity to play with Slipknot on their festival, a band that I've been listening to for 24 years now, since right when their first album came out, and to do that in a country that we already have, I feel like our most dedicated fan base, to go play to more people than, we're very appreciative of the fan base we have, but we haven't done a lot of festivals there. We haven't done much more than headlining every couple years or so. So it'll be great to reach some new fans obviously get back to our fans. And then I'm just interested to see how we fit in the bill with so many heavy bands. Whether, like the last interview we were talking about the dynamics of us being in the middle of all this heaviness. It's probably a good thing, but I can't help but think we should probably play some more heavy songs than usual, So I'm interested to see how it all plays out.
Well, that actually ties in quite nicely with the new album, actually. And it is a question I was going to ask later on about what difference will there be with Knotfest and your, what we call the sideshows over here. I'm guessing there'll be some set list changes. But the new album itself, the thing that really, I know we're jumping around, but the new album, what really stood out to me was, this is probably the heaviest album you guys have actually released. Like, I go through that. And
in some ways, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just going through my notes here, and I only got the album yesterday. I picked up the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them songs they have heavy grooves and riffs in them. They have breakdowns in them. And I was listening to it last night going, damn, this rocks. And straight away, I was going, there will be a crowd appreciative of it, Knotfest. So I'm guessing then, taking that into account, would we be playing mostly that sort of stuff then at Knotfest?
I think we're going to need to play certain songs for our fans. We're going to need to play certain songs for people to recognize us who maybe aren't active fans but may have heard the band, right? So, like, of course, we're going to play Until the Day I Die. That's like a no-brainer of a closer. Stuff like that. But, like, the first song on this new album, Tear Me to Pieces, the title track, hits hard as shit, and that would be a great song to open with. It's also got a nice upbeat chorus, which is, that kind of punk side of us, but the main riff hits harder than most things we've done, like you're saying. So I think if we have a good mix of the new album, the hits from Page Avenue, and maybe some heavy stuff from the second and third album, 2-3 songs there, that's a pretty solid set in my mind.
Yeah, because you're still going to be who you are. There'll be people who come to see you, not just Slipknot. So that makes sense. So taking that into account, then, touching it earlier, will the if I say I'm a 14-year-old Story of the Year fan, I can only afford to go to one of them, right? Knotfest or your sideshow. Which one are you saying I would get the complete Story of the Year show?
I mean, selfishly, I would say go to the sideshows. If you want to see all those other bands and get your money's worth on that level, I mean, do what you have to do with the festival. But for us at this point, 6 albums in, it's tough to make a set, even a headlining set, and feel like we haven't left anything out that people might want to hear. Obviously, we're not going to play every song that everyone wants to hear, but we were just rehearsing our album release set and realizing, well, damn, if we take this song out, there's nothing from that album. And then, that it's tough these days. And we're not the kind of band that plays 2.5 hours. Like the energy of the kind of show that we do, it's not sustainable for 2 hours unless we put a full-blown just chill section in the middle. We're like an hour and a half, hour and 45 tops kind of headliner, and I like that, because even my favorite bands, you cross an hour and a half and I'm like, oh, damn, almost bedtime. So it's tough, man, but that's a long way of saying the headlining show will give you more of what you want if you're a big Story of the Year fan.
That's what we wanted to hear. I do appreciate what you say about the long shows. We had Guns N' Roses here a month or two ago, and I was down on the barrier for it. And my override, it was great being on the barrier, being so close, but my overriding memory was after 2 hours and 45 minutes, half that set list could have gone and it would have been a better show. Yeah, all killer, no filler.
You could say the same thing about Use Your Illusion. That could have been one great album instead of 2 halves of a great album and a bunch of filler.
Yeah. No, or Metallica Load and Reload, same thing.
Oh, geez. Yeah, same thing. Same thing.
No, another band that played for hours. So going into the actual album itself, as I mentioned earlier, I work out about half the album is I put in a heavy category or heavier than normal. And it's not just Tear Me to Pieces. That includes Afterglow, War, especially, Dead and Gone, Can't Save You. You still have your pop punk 2005, Real Life. And then you have this, I love this song. It was the song I played over and over again because it has this beautiful guitar thing that takes me back to the 80s, which is Use Me, the album closer.
Oh yeah, dude. Beautiful song.
Isn't it just? It was so after all the rage that had, I'm going to call it rage, that had come out through the album, both lyrically and musically, that was just like, wow, this is so good. So taking that into account, did you guys piece together song by song to make it like a story? Or was it just like, this was the first song I recorded, so this is track one, and this is the second one?
It in no way came together in the sequence that it ended up in on the album. But we were conscious of what the whole album in terms of dynamics and sort of checking all the boxes that we wanted to, how it was shaping up as we went. So we had this whiteboard with all the songs that were in the running as we were writing and demoing everything with Colin, the producer. And we just kept looking at it thinking, I don't know, maybe we need one more. And we've got this, we need this kind of song, you know? And I was really pushing for a song in 6/8 time signature. Josh loves that as well. So we would have back and forth about, like, Colin's whole thing was like, man, I don't know, that's some 6/8, I think of this, blah, blah, blah. So we had this back and forth. I'm like, no, I mean, look at our first album. We would like reference our own stuff. Like, here's what makes up our style. Here's what makes up a dynamic story of the year set or a dynamic story of the year album. And we really wanted to make sure that we could take you on that journey, albeit 33 minutes in this case, but, you know, really like go everywhere that we wanted to, that we felt like was most relevant in 2023. And some of those were holes that we had to fill, but some were also things that were just so magical, like it could not go on the album. Like 2005 and Use Me were two songwriting processes that I was just like on my feet, pacing around the room, freaking out about, like, oh my God, we're going somewhere really special right now with this. And those were both actually great collaborative songwriting processes with this one dude, who's just like the best vibe. So it was, I don't know, a lot of vibe inspiration, but then also a very, like I'm saying, like um, a very focused and what is the word? I'm very sorry. A very intentional approach is what I'm saying. So yeah, it ended up by feel turning into kind of a story of an album.
Yeah, well, there's mentioning about heartache, depression, toxic relationships, and I feel that the whole way through the album as well. Is which resonates actually. A lot of it actually is really, really relatable, and I think a lot of people will relate to it, especially now in more modern society with social media and stuff. I do have to ask: is that about one person, or is that just a collective of the, as you said, collaborative earlier, people just popping things in? Like, is it a Fleetwood Mac type of thing we'll hear about in pub quizzes in the future?
Yeah, I mean, since it was such a collaborative effort, the entire album, we did a lot of sort of just working with a few lines that had the right feel. The lyrics kind of matched the mood of the song. And then we would almost like, it was almost like this musical archaeology dig, you know, where it's like, I felt like we were uncovering what the song really truly is, like the song's truth in a way, not to get too heady with this, but like the song would, like, what the song should be kind of revealed itself through that process. And then we'd sort of see like, oh, well, what if it could be like this? Maybe, you know, maybe this one's about a toxic relationship, you know, and then we each start pulling from our personal experiences or even stories of other people, or I'm thinking like, you know, movie characters. And then we all bring our own stuff into a song. And there were a lot of times when like our producer would just spit out a whole verse of lyrics. And we, instead of just using them as is or rewriting them ourselves because, you know, for some like kind of personal territorial reason, we would instead almost like produce him, like the roles would flip. say a lyric and we'd be like, no, that's too much like this. Like Dan would say, I would never say that line, for example. I'd never say something like that. Like make that stronger, or make it less meek here, or make it more personal here. Or I'd say at the top of the verse, we need like an establishing shot. Like I kept saying that, whether it was a melody or a first lyric, like we need to establish where we are. I'm thinking like the shot of a building in a scene before you go in and continue the scene, right? So we would do those things, but all of it came from a personally driven like storytelling kind of thing. Like you know, you read some of the best screenplays, it's not autobiography, but every good screenwriter brings their personal experience into it and tells a story through that lens. So we kind of did the same, just as a group, through many lenses, all focused into the same same finishing line.
Interesting. A lot of the comments that you've made there have been movie related, or like how you're explaining it, or is it TV related or movie related? Is that often how you manage to do your, I will say creativity, because not just in music, but also the videos? Are you always thinking, what does this look like visually to people?
I've always thought that way for sure, because I've always been more, I felt more natural as a visual artist. I mean, I'm technically a professional musician, and I technically have been for, you know, almost 25 years, but I've always been better at the visual side. Like Ryan, our guitar player, and I, we edited our own DVDs, or, you know, we directed a few of our own music videos. We've always been very involved in that way. I've been studying screenwriting and filmmaking for 20 years. So it's easier for me to think of things in that way. And Dan, although he's the most talented musician in our band, he can play every single instrument, which works great for a singer. But he also, I think on the last album, which I wasn't a part of because I kind of took a hiatus, he told me that he had this stretch of months where he would go down a rabbit hole of a specific director's entire catalog, watch every movie that they made. He could watch every Scorsese movie, for example, and then just take those vibes and kind of character things and use that as inspiration for a song, even if it was a truly like personal song about him and his kids or something, for example. Still letting that kind of like cinematic perspective help shape things. So I think it works best that way. Like some of the best songs in history tell stories. I mean, that's where songs started hundreds of thousands of years ago. We had to communicate in some way. We had this oral history became musical history before you could write on paper, or before the printing press. We were writing songs and telling stories that way. So here we are in the 21st century, kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But we just have newer tools, I guess.
I will ask one last question, because I'm sure at some point
that was long-winded. My bad.
No, it's all good. Well, I'm sure at some point Tiana's going to kick me off. So I'll ask one last question before she jumps in. Musically, I noticed, I mean, you mentioned you worked on the last album, of course, but I do notice that this album is a lot more down-tuned, and there's a lot more bass is more prevalent in it, which obviously is your instrument. Was that done deliberately as well, because of where the lyrics were? Because it was more angry, I suppose?
Nothing that deliberate, but the thing with working with Colin, it's all so spontaneous. Like we did a lot of writing leading up to the actual pre-production and recording process, but we did the majority of the writing there. So he would just grab an instrument, Ryan would play a single riff, we'd get a sample of something and just start playing it. And whatever key it was in, that's what it was in. We would occasionally shift things up or down, but for the most part, like Ryan would just play a riff on whatever guitar was sitting there. And if it sounded cool, whatever tuning it happened to be in, that's kind of where it ended up. And then that would inform the vibe, and it would just kind of happen. It would just kind of evolve, like you said. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, I think that's my time up, Adam, and I'm sure you've got, well, I know you've got a lot more to do as well. So thank you very much for your time today. Best of luck with the new album when it comes out on March the 10th over here. I'm not sure what it is overseas. I really do think it's a great album. I really do. And best of luck with your tour as well when you arrive over in Australia as well.